All right, and we're live. Welcome back with Murphy Mag to another episode of the Fitness Beginner Podcast, where we help you get started on your fitness journey. How's it going, everybody? Hope y'all are starting your day off right. Y'all have a great week this week. We have another guest joining us on the podcast today. We got an interesting podcast topic coming to y'all, and I'm excited to get to learn a little bit more about it from today's guest. And today we have Mr. Is it Loren? Loren
It is.
Lockman?
It is,
Okay,
exactly.
Loren Lockman. He is joining us joining us on the podcast today. So I just want to give you a quick little glimpse of the podcast and what we do. So it's called the Fitness Beginner Podcast. The whole idea is to just help people get started, help people get motivated, help people learn like the basics of things,
Yeah.
and just try to get people into that fitness mindset. So that's the whole idea of the podcast. And then we like to have guests on that specialize in certain areas, and then we'll dive deeper into certain topics. Then when we have guests on like yourself. So that's what we do here on the podcast. If you would, just go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. As you said, I'm Loren Lockman, and for the last 30 plus years, I've been guiding people through therapeutic water only fasts. You've heard of fasting, everyone is familiar with intermittent fasting. My clients fast on average 26 days, just water. And I know it sounds crazy to most people. It's actually life changing, and it changed my life. And from there, I wound up helping other people for 29 years. I ran the world's largest water only fasting center. It might be a surprise to many people listening, but there are right now not so many, maybe half a dozen or so fasting centers around the world. And Tanglewood was the largest in the world for 29 years, located in Costa Rica. Now I work with people remotely. And it's interesting because I actually got started on my health journey with an interest in fitness, excuse me.
Awesome. Yeah, fasting's always been an interesting topic to me, and I don't really know much about it. So
Yeah.
I like to learn about it because I've never actually attempted one of these before, and I've been wanting to do it, and I just can't really find the right time to do it for me because I do a lot of training. So I
Yeah.
think if I just fasted, I think it would probably do me more harm than good. But I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it at some point. I'm gonna do it. I want to try it.
Well, you're absolutely right. First of all, it's a great place to start. Fasting is about resting as completely as possible. Did you grow up with dogs by any chance? You ever see one get sick enough to refuse to eat?
I can't recall if I have. No.
Okay, because it's a common thing. Every species on the planet, when sick enough or badly enough injured, will lay down and stop eating. And the point of what they do is they do nothing. They just lay there and rest. And so fasting really is about resting as completely as possible. No, not intermittent fasting, but when we're doing therapeutic fasts. The goal is to rest as completely as we can so the body can use that energy to cleanse and heal. And so you're right. I've been training almost every day since I was 14. I've missed a few when I've been injured or traveling and not able to, but it's been pretty much my lifetime thing now since I was 14. What happened? I grew 10 inches that year without gaining a pound.
Wow.
I look like a stick with a nose, and it's a pretty prominent nose. And I wanted to put on some muscle and be more attractive to girls, and so I started working out, and it worked. I gained some weight. It was amazing, and I got hooked. It's as you well know, it's an incredible thing. You feel amazing when you're fit. And I got really sick 9 years later at 23. And I went and looked at everything I was doing and realized that medicine had made me sicker for 3 years. Homeopathy didn't work for me. Naturopathy didn't work for me. Herbs didn't work for me. Chiropractic didn't work for me. I tried supplements. I tried everything I knew of. And ultimately, what I realized was that every species fasts when sick enough. And I began fasting, and incredible things happened. And I started coaching other people on health, and they were asking me to help them, to guide them through the fasting process. And that's what I began doing. But it really all started with fitness.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard a lot of, I guess, research and studies are coming out now about fasting, and people are really understanding now that it really is a tool that you can use to really help your health. That's why I'm interested in it and learning like how I can use it in my training.
Yeah.
So maybe I can get some tips today. That'd be my goal
Well,
for the conversation today.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and It brings up a really important point too, because many people look at someone who looks fit. They've got a great physique and they look strong, and they say that person's healthy. But that's not necessarily true. As you're probably aware, professional athletes, college athletes sometimes have heart attacks while they're playing their game, right? In the '72 Olympics, when the Palestine Liberation Organization broke into the Israeli athletes' dormitory, they killed, I forget how many, 16 athletes, Olympic athletes, and they were autopsied, and all of them had arterial plaque, even though they were Olympic athletes. So it's important to understand that, as important as fitness is, fitness doesn't equal health. What I would say, in fact, is that in order to be healthy, you need to be fit. Fitness is a requirement for health. But in order to be fit, you don't have to be healthy. I've worked with professional athletes who were not healthy at all. Professional tennis player who lived on McDonald's and at the age of 40 was having significant chest and carotid artery pain. And his older brother, father, uncles, and grandfather had all died of heart attacks. And he thought, maybe I better do something about this. And so fasting allows the body to heal in a way that it can't heal otherwise. And again, this is probably for most people, this is kind of new information. It's not something people don't even think about because we've all been brought up around medicine and maybe alternatives to it. But the truth is that only the body can heal the body. Healing is a biological process. So nothing we take can heal the body, only the body can heal itself. Fasting simply allows us to get out of the body's way so that it can heal as well and as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And I went from 26 when I finally walked away from medicine sicker. I mean, I wasn't dealing with anything life-threatening. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic sinusitis, systemic candida, and 57 allergies, and I could barely function. And I went from that at 26. I'm now 65. I haven't been sick one day in nearly 40 years. And I've worked with more than 16,000 clients, that more than 12,000 have done long fasts with me. Everybody sees the same thing. And the crazy thing is, bringing it back to your area, this is about fitness. This is the piece that surprises a lot of people. And first of all, you need to understand, when we fast, we do lose some muscle mass. There's no way to avoid that. I don't know if you've ever been injured badly enough to have to take some time off. But if so, you probably know that if you stop working out for a month, you're losing muscle mass. And the body does that on purpose. It's interesting. We don't lose a lot of other things. If we think about fitness and all the things that involve balance and cardio and all that stuff, what we lose is strength. And the reason we do is because muscle mass is metabolically expensive, which is why bodybuilders don't live very long. It's one of the reasons. There's other reasons too. Obviously, if they're doping, it's not very healthy. But even carrying more muscle mass that is natural for us isn't really a very healthy thing to do. And when you look at centenarians, they tend to be lean people, not giant, bulky people. So the interesting thing is we lose muscle when fasting because the body's looking for sugar. Most of the body will run on ketones from fat metabolism while we're fasting. But your brain, your spleen, and your reproductive organs want sugar. And they're going to get that sugar while fasting primarily from converting muscle to sugar. Now, if you do it properly, which means resting as completely as possible and getting enough water for your body, you're going to minimize muscle loss. And the water is important because, let's use you for a second. How tall are you?
5'9".
And what's your current weight?
About 174-ish, 175.
Okay. Do you know how much body fat you have? What percentage?
If I had to guess, probably around 17%.
Okay. So if you're 174 and 17% body fat, 10% would be 17.4 pounds. So let's say you're going to be around almost 30 pounds of body fat. Okay. 144 pounds of lean mass, 30 pounds of fat. The 30 pounds of fat, and my numbers may be off a little bit, but this will make the point. The 30 pounds of fat is only 10% water. So it's 3 pounds of water. A liter is 2.2. It's not even a liter and a half of water in your fatty tissue. Your lean mass of 144 pounds is going to be roughly 108 pounds of water. Okay, 108 pounds of water means almost 50 liters. So you got less than 1.5 in your body fat and 50 in your muscle mass, in your lean tissue. I don't know if you ever heard of Willie Sutton. Name ring a bell? He was a famous bank robber from about 100 years ago. And they asked him why he robbed banks. And he said, well, because that's where the money is, which makes perfect sense, right? When you don't drink all the water your body needs, your body's going to get it from where the water is, and that's muscle. It's not fat. So if you're not drinking enough water, you lose more muscle because your body's going to break it down. An average man, obviously it depends on size and various other factors, but the average man needs about 3.7 liters of water per day to function properly. Now, in your normal life, you probably don't drink anywhere near that much. But if you're drinking other beverages and you're getting water from food, that's how you get your needs met. And not everyone gets that much. Some people are getting more dehydrated every day. But that's how much theoretically the body needs. When we're fasting and there's no food and the only thing you're consuming is water, we have to get our needs met from water. And our needs actually go up. It's interesting because, again, so when we're done, the body becomes so much more efficient that we regain muscle much faster than we lost it. It becomes easier than ever to gain muscle. Now, I'm sure you're aware, most people, the common belief for many years was that after a certain point, I think it was as early as around 30, it becomes difficult to build muscle. Again, I'm 65 and find it super easy to build muscle. It's no problem at all. And in fact, I do it with relatively little protein. Now, this is important. And this, you may have some issues with this around your own practices, may not coincide, because I understand that muscle building usually means consuming lots of protein. But there's increasing research, and there'll be more coming out all the time now, that will demonstrate that the more protein we consume, the faster we age and die. Protein actually is harmful to us because it's acid forming. It's hard on the kidneys, it's hard on the liver, it's hard on the bowels because, depending on what the source is, our systems actually require fiber to move things through. If we look at a 500-pound tiger, from mouth to anus, it's 12 feet long. That tiger is more than 3 times bigger than you, but your digestive tract is 32 feet long. It's more than 2.5 times longer than the tiger's. About 8 times longer proportionally, yours to that animal's. All omnivores and carnivores have very short, smooth, straight digestive tracts. So we definitely need protein. The piece that a lot of people don't realize is that protein is the building block of living cell tissue. So I still work out almost every day. Some days I go hard as I did yesterday. And after taking a bit of a break after an injury, I'm actually working with a trainer now and doing stuff I wouldn't normally, ordinarily be doing on my own. And he's beating the crap out of me a couple times a week. Usually the day after training, I'll do Pilates, which I know a lot of people think, oh, that's for girls. It's actually pretty powerful for your core. And then I play racquetball a couple of times a week as well. And on the days I'm not training hard, I'm doing sets of push-ups and wall chairs and other things. It's been amazing for me because it's allowed me to, again, after fasting, rebuild, after an injury layoff, rebuild. But the craziest thing about this is how we become much more efficient. As the body becomes more efficient, we not only need less protein, we actually need less food. And again, this may sound a little bit foreign because it's not something most people know much about. Back in the early 80s, if I remember correctly, there was a project in the Arizona desert called Biosphere 2. Did you ever hear about that?
I don't think so.
They built this series of glass domes connected by glass tunnels, a whole glass structure in the desert, and they sent a whole team of scientists to live inside. 12, I forget how many. It was an even number, males and females, because they were in there for years. It was supposed to be 3 or 4 years. And the objective was they were going to grow all their own food. There was a source of water inside. They were going to recycle their own waste, their own compost and human waste. So theoretically, nothing was going to come in, nothing was going to go out. They dramatically overestimated how much food they'd be able to build inside, to grow inside. The result was that people, I don't remember the exact number, but I think they were eating something like between 60 and 70, 75 maybe percent as many calories as they thought they would. And at the end of the experiment, when they came out, there was a doctor on the team, and every member of their scientific team was much healthier than when they went in because they were eating fewer calories. The doctor on the team spent the rest of his life traveling and speaking about why people should restrict their caloric intake. And that's what he talked about, restricting your caloric intake. I don't know about you, restricting doesn't sound like any fun to me.
Nah.
Yeah. My joke is I met some of his followers at a health conference and said, how do you feel? And they all said, hungry, because they weren't eating as much as they wanted to. What I do with my clients is I help them become as efficient as possible so they need fewer calories. Okay. Now I have a tiny frame. I have very small wrists. I weigh about as much as you do, but I'm 6 feet tall. So you're definitely bigger than I am. But again, I have a very, very small frame. But I maintain it eating between 1,000 and 1,200 calories a day. And the reason for because of that, I'm aging much more slowly. I've been doing this now for 30 years than other people. I spoke to one of my sisters today. I was at a family wedding a few months ago, and there were a bunch of people that are my age, all had a lot of wrinkles on their face. There are 6 siblings, 7, including me and my family. They all wear glasses, at least to read or to drive. My vision's still better than 20/20. The 4 of us in our 60s, everybody has arthritis except me. We inherited from my mother. It's amazing what our bodies can do. So I'm guessing you might be 2 or 3 years younger than me.
Yeah, just a few.
Just a few. And that's fantastic. Enjoy it. It's amazing, right? It's amazing. It goes by really quickly. So enjoy it while you can. And that's why it's so important to take the steps necessary, because you and I both love working out. Right now I'm doing what I'm able to do. I'm super busy. When I have time, I surf. I like to mountain bike. I climb cliffs. Once a week, I hike to the top of a mountain. I don't know if you know this area. There's lots of mountains around here, outside of Seattle. So every week I hike to the top of a mountain with a group of friends. There's all kinds of things I like to do, and it's amazing to be able to continue to use my body the way I choose to, where many people my age. I was listening to a podcast. I don't know if you know who Robert Greene is, author. He wrote the 48 Laws of Power and The Art of Seduction and lots of other interesting books. He's 67, has already had a stroke, and believes that he'll never be able to use his body again. And I've reached out to him to say, hey man, you can heal if you're willing to. But what happens to a lot of people, and I mean, again, you might think, yeah, but you're way older. Like that's a long way off. I'm telling you, it gets there pretty quickly. The last thing I remember, I was 18. So you want to take the steps necessary so you can continue to enjoy the activities you enjoy now, as long as you want to.
So you mentioned that you can do like a lot of other people your age can't necessarily do, like hike to the top of a mountain. So are you saying that fasting is the reason you're able to do that, or do you think maybe that is just one factor in it? Because I think maybe since you are more active, you do work out, you're probably eating healthier foods. I think kind of all of that would go into why you are so healthy. How much?
Yeah.
So how much of that is due to the fasting, and how much of that is due to just you being an overall active person? Like you go out, you go surfing and things. Like I would say all of it kind of plays a major factor in it.
Well, there's no question. It all plays a role for sure. But what happens to most people, in fact, I'll tell you what the most important factor is. I can tell you directly because I'm very clear about this. I've been actually measuring this, something most people don't do for a long time. There's devices called bioimpedance devices. Most of them are scales you stand on. Maybe you've seen this or used one that give you your body fat, muscle mass, and the water in your body. The information they give you, again, they're going to tell you, these devices, what percentage of your mass, your 174 pounds, they're going to tell you what percentage of that weight is water in your body. Most of them can't differentiate between the cellular water, which is water that hydrates you, and extracellular water, which can include mucus, edema, inflammation, right? If you work out hard, you've got some inflammation, your arms look big, and then they don't look as big the next day when some of the inflammation goes down, or the day after that, whatever it is. Inflammation is your body actually bringing blood and lymph to the area to help it heal faster, right? So we've measured now, we as the Royal We, I ran the world's largest fasting center, had 25 employees. We would measure our clients every day, and I've measured now in the last 24 years, I think it's been, 22, somewhere 22, 23 years now, we've measured more than 8,000 people's hydration. Every single person I've measured has been dehydrated. Most of them seriously dehydrated. That has the biggest impact of all. I mean, I'm actually looking at 30 metrics. Right now, I've got 2 group calls every day with people fasting with me. But by the way, it's important to say that, if you want to not eat 16 hours a day, that's fine. If you want to fast for a few days at a time, that's okay. If you want to do a therapeutic fast, which allows your body to heal and detoxify in a way that like nothing else does, and we can talk about specific examples of this, you need to have experienced guidance because it's a very powerful program. You probably have a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful, I'm guessing. Is that good or bad?
I guess good. Gets me where I need to go.
I would suggest that it's neutral, and it depends on how you use the power.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I mean, imagine that you use that power to drive into a bus stop full of children. Not so good, right? On the other hand, you could use it to, to get someone to the hospital when they needed to, or there's lots of ways it could be positive. Power is neutral, and it depends on how it's applied. So the power of this process depends on what you're doing. People who don't do it properly can really harm themselves. People who do it well, I mean, I've had more than 1,500 people heal from hypertension, something medicine says, and that's all of them I've worked with, every hypertensive client, something medicine says is impossible. But, maybe we bring it back to the fitness world. I had a client who was a professional soccer player from the UK. He was 32. He had suffered a multiple compound fracture of one of his lower legs. Now, you probably know, and maybe people listening will know, but in case they don't, multiple compound fracture means it was broken in more than one place, right? Most breaks are a hairline fracture where the 2 pieces of bone are where they should be. Compound fracture means it's like that. And that's when someone has to go in, the doctor goes in, puts it back where it should be, puts a splint, puts a cast, does something to make sure it heals this way. He'd had multiple compound fractures, so multiple breaks on the same bone, like this. And they told him that if he broke it again, he might not walk. And he decided maybe it was time to retire from professional sports after a dozen years or something. And so when the cast came off, he came to me in Costa Rica and fasted for 30 days. And at the end of that 30 days, he started working out. Again, professional athlete. He started working out around day 3 or 4 because right at the end of the fast, you're still fairly weak, not ready to do anything. It takes a few days. About 6 days into the refeeding process, he came to me and said, Loren, I'm curious, how many calories am I eating? I said, let me go calculate it for you. So I went and calculated and said, well, yesterday you ate around 800, maybe 9, I don't remember now, 900 calories. And he said, and first of all, before that, he'd said to me, I'm working out several hours a day now. We had exercise bars. This is in Costa Rica where it's warm all year long. So we had exercise bars people could use. We had a beautiful yoga shala where people could practice yoga, stretching, whatever, body weight exercises. We were actually building a gym, and then we wound up closing. But we had mountain bikes. We had 3 or 4 to 4 kilometers of trails. We had a big field. He was a soccer player. You could go kick a soccer ball, run around the field, etc. So he said to me, I can't believe how good I feel. I feel stronger than ever. And I'm curious, how much am I eating? I said, maybe 900 calories a day. And he said, 6 months ago, I was eating 6,000 calories a day. And I feel better now than I did then. And that's when I talk about becoming more efficient, that's what I mean. So many years ago, I was at a conference here, actually, in the Pacific Northwest. I think it was in Portland, Oregon. And I met a Russian man who wrote a book called Controlled for Life Extension. Big, thick book on living as long as possible. He had traveled around the world and interviewed centenarians, people that lived 100 years or more. And he said the only thing these people had, they ate different diets. Some smoked tobacco, some drank alcohol, typically not very much, but some did those things. They all had different diets. Some didn't eat any animal products. I mean, if we look at the blue zones where people on the planet live the longest, they all eat plant-based diets, very small amounts of animal protein. But some of these people ate meat and some of them didn't. The only thing they had in common was they all ate very few calories. So, you could do it the way, I don't remember the doctor from the Biosphere Project. You could restrict the way he suggested, which means you're hungry, but you don't eat more. No thanks, that doesn't sound like any fun. Or you could actually make your body more efficient so it doesn't need more. And that's what happens when people fast properly and long enough. So coming back to your question, am I able to do those things because of all the choices? Sure. But what happens to most people is they get progressively more dehydrated as they get older. So typically, I would have 32 people fasting at my center at the same time for an average of 26 days. Usually, the 3 or 4 oldest people were the 3 or 4 most dehydrated people there. And by the way, my oldest clients were in their 90s. But even people in their 70s were typically very dehydrated. Typically, people in their teens, 20s, maybe up to 30 were much better than average. People in the 40s, 50s, 60s, not as well hydrated as the younger people, but better than the older people. So there's a direct correlation. We can talk about why that happens, if you like. Have you ever eaten corn chips?
Mm-hmm.
How much water would you guess is in them?
Oh, I have no clue.
Most people say, 0, because they feel pretty dry. The truth is they're about 3% water. If that sounds like a lot, white bread is 50% water. So 3% is not very much. When they come back out of your body, are they as dry as when they went in?
Mm-mm.
You better hope not. Can you imagine how uncomfortable that would be? Right? So they go in almost completely dry. Stool, poop, is 75% water on average. So they go in dry, they come out 75% water. Where's the water come from? It's coming from your body. You and I, and probably everybody listening, grew up eating mostly dehydrated foods, things that have been processed. The water's processed out of them. They're cooked. We're cooking the water out of them. In nature, every species eats a high water content diet. And it makes a huge difference. It's not the only factor, but if we look at the sickest animal out of more than 25 million species, sickest one on the planet, guess which species?
A human?
Exactly. Number 2, dogs.
Dog, yeah.
Number 3, cats. Numbers 4 through 100 are all the other animals that humans control and feed things that are not what they're actually made for. Mm-hmm. Whether animals in nature, I mean, many animals eat only plants, all high in water. It doesn't matter if it's fruits or roots or shoots. Even termites eat wood. You ever cut down a tree to use the lumber? Mm-hmm. What do you have to do before you use the lumber?
You gotta let it dry out before you can cut it up.
It's full of water. Exactly. Every plant is. Carnivores, and you may know this, you in Alabama, you have wolves there?
No, coyotes.
Okay. So a coyote kills its prey, maybe a rabbit, something like that. Typically bites through the jugular vein, right? You have the carotid arteries, jugular vein, which the arteries are bringing blood from the heart to the brain. Jugular it's the vein bringing blood back to the heart from the tissues. You're 174 pounds, brain on average is about 3 pounds. which means your brain is less than 2%, like mine. We're about the same size, same weight, about less than 2% of our weight. But the brain gets well over 35% of our blood supply. So there's a lot of blood moving through the neck of every animal. That's why predators tend to go here. They bite through these blood vessels, they drink all the blood, then they tear them open, eat the water-rich internal organs. Then they eat the muscle, what people call meat. Then they eat that without A, cooking all the water out of it, and B, putting it between two dry pieces of bread. That's the way it happens in nature. Okay. Quite different than what most humans are doing. So every species is getting a high water content diet. When we feed ourselves dried processed foods, we're dehydrating the body, and we dehydrate the body, nothing functions as well. In fact, let's come back to you. I think we said you had roughly 144 pounds of lean mass, right? Let's say the average person I've measured is 85%, a little bit less, around 84% hydrated. And again, most of the water's in the lean tissue. So if you've got 144 pounds, but you're 85% hydrated, that means you would go up to 165 pounds, roughly, of lean mass simply by being fully hydrated without doing another push-up, just hydrating the body. If we could snap our fingers right now, you were fully hydrated, you'd gain 20 pounds of lean mass. How much better would your body work? Right? And it's not just lifting things, not just that. We know the brain works better when it's hydrated. We know the kidneys, all the vital organs, especially the kidneys. Being dehydrated is actually super damaging to the kidneys, which are, of course, vitally important. Kidneys stop functioning, what happens? You're connected to a machine and you're not going to live very long. Most people don't live more than a few years on dialysis.
So what's the best way for people to rehydrate? Is it just water? Do you do electrolytes? What does like a rehydration protocol look like for one of your
Yeah,
clients?
yeah. So the problem is when we add electrolytes to water, the body knows that there's something that wasn't part of the water. So I'm drinking spring water. I'm in the U.S. after, my site in Costa Rica I bought because there was a spring on site and built my place there. I'm currently drinking Mountain Valley spring water from Arkansas in glass bottles because I don't want to drink out of plastic. This all spring water has minerals in it, but they're in tiny, tiny quantities, about 65 or more. Most spring water is going to have more than 60 different minerals in tiny quantities. When we add something, the body says, hey, that's not part of the natural water. Right? These minerals came into the water as part of the natural hydrological cycle. Rain falls, seeps into the ground, goes through the rock, bubbles back up through a spring, picks up trace amounts of minerals, and is held in the water in a different way than when we add something. So my clients drink spring water when they can get it, when they're willing to do that. Sometimes, it's an investment. I mean, this water's $3 a bottle. It's not cheap, $3 a liter. That's the best way. The key, though, the real key to hydration, there are several things that are critically important. A, salt dehydrates you, right? Salt takes water out of the body. It's actually harmful to us. And this sounds crazy. And again, you're in the fitness world. You have to consume salt, right? Well, I haven't consumed salt in 40 years. Now, how's that possible? We need it. We do. But what we actually need is organic sodium and chloride. And when I say organic, what I mean here is not the stuff they sell at Whole Foods. I mean the stuff that's part of plant tissue. That's where we get our minerals from. So when you grow celery, for instance, is high in sodium and chloride, but it contains sodium and chloride, two separate ions. Sodium chloride is salt, and it's an inorganic mineral. Have you seen a salt lamp? Doesn't it look delicious? It's not food. It's like a giant rock. We're not going to eat that.
Yeah.
It's actually much closer to quartz, diamond, ruby, sapphires, emeralds. They're all inorganic crystals as well. It doesn't matter how small the pieces we smash it into. It's not really something we're meant to eat. But when there's salt crystals in this inorganic mineral in the ground, in the soil, beneficial soil organisms, which are bacteria, specialized bacteria, they help that plant convert those minerals into organic plant tissue. So when you eat celery, lettuce, tomatoes, I mean, the truth is almost all fruits and plants have small amounts of sodium. Celery has a lot, tomatoes a bit less, lettuce a bit less, but watermelon has some, and cantaloupe has some. Almost all fruits do, and green leaves as well. So I get my needs met by just eating the plants. I don't ever use salt. I don't have any salt. I wouldn't use it anymore. When your body's clean enough and you eat salt, you actually blow up like a balloon because your body's trying to protect you. It's called edema. The body's trying to protect you from the salt. Same way it does with uric acid. Yeah, you probably know people who lift and eat a lot of protein and sometimes wind up with gout, right? Gout is an excess amount of uric acid crystals in the body. Body stores water to protect you from it. The same thing happens with salt when the body's clean enough. Right? If you're eating it all the time, your body can't keep up with it, and you may not realize what's happening. But so the crazy thing is, when we come back to the corn chips. Again, if we look at the tiger, digestive tract straight, relatively short for its size, right? 12 feet long instead of 32 feet long for an adult male. So it's relatively short. It's straight, where from again, I'm 6 feet tall. From the bottom of my stomach, which isn't way down here, it's actually higher. From the bottom of the stomach to the ileocecal valve in the right groin, where the small intestine ends and the colon begins, that's only about 12 inches on my 6-foot torso. In that space, there's 22 feet of small intestine, roughly. It's all twists and turns. It's 1/3 the diameter of the large. The colon's 1.5 inches. The small intestine's 1/2 inch. It's sacculated like a vacuum cleaner hose, and it's all like this. This is where stuff gets stuck. So when we're eating anything that's not high in both water and fiber, a significant amount of it, actually little bits of it, winds up getting stuck. In a Danish paper published about 10 years ago, they said in their study, people between 25 and 50 have between 5 and 10 kilos of old material in the body. That's 11 to 22 pounds of old waste. I get to say something most people can't say, and I hope this isn't offensive. It's call it French, right? I get to tell my clients, hey, you're full of shit. Because everybody is. One of the people I'm hiking with every week is 30. And she fasted with me 2.5 years ago. We only met when I came to Seattle back in January. She worked with me 2.5 years ago, but remotely. I'd never met her in person. She's 5'4". She weighed 99 pounds when she started her fast. And you'd think, that's pretty small to be starting a period of not eating. She fasted for 30 days. And in the 7 months she started eating, in the 7 months after she started eating, she had an average of 10 bowel movements per day.
Wow.
Eating 4 times a day. Not everyone does that. That's extreme. But I have a lot of clients that have a lot of elimination, okay? Because there's stuff that's been building up from their whole life of making relatively poor choices. And again, this people might think, what does this have to do with fitness? Your body doesn't work properly until you get that stuff out and get hydrated. People get injured because they're dehydrated, right? Which tears more easily? I've torn muscles and it's really painful. Okay, trying to lift too much when I was younger. I was much bigger then. Which tears more easily? A hydrated muscle or a dry, dehydrated one? The dehydrated ones. Why do people wind up with joint problems? Well, arthritis happens because cartilage breaks down and synovial fluid literally disappears as people get older because they're dehydrated. Because synovial fluid is 99% water and cartilage is 97% water. So I truly believe being hydrated is the single most important thing. And the only way to, again, you can sip more water. I would say drink spring water if you can get it. Most people that I work with, when they're not fasting, need 3 to 4 liters a day. You have to sip it slowly. I don't know if you've noticed, I've taken a few sips, only a little bit at a time. If I could down this whole glass right now, but I would pee it out in 35 minutes or so, maybe an hour. Once, it goes right into the bladder because we're drinking it faster than the kidneys can process it. And our kidneys' job is to filter the blood all the time, nonstop, our entire life. We talked earlier about how important it is, really, really critical. Their job is to take out everything that the body doesn't want and keep what it does in the blood. And urine is actually blood plasma that the body has gotten rid of, either because there was too much liquid or simply because it needed to excrete things and it needed the water to move things out. Because everything is eliminated from the body on water, whether it's through the urinary tract, through the colon, through the skin, through our breath, or through mucous membranes and others. Everything moves out on water. If there's not enough water, the body can't detoxify. So I have a client right now who's from Tennessee, and she contacted me almost 20 years ago. She had fasted on her own, and she wound up creating some serious problems, going to the hospital. And then she found me, and I helped her fix everything. And we've stayed in touch. She reached out to me back in January because she'd had a gallbladder attack. And so she needed to get things in order. She's now fasting with me. This is day 4 or 5, I forget. But we got her on the scale. I'm like, oh my God, you're super dehydrated. For someone who is 49, she's as dehydrated as someone who is 75. And again, typically, the more older we are, the more dehydrated we get. As soon as we start to hydrate her, she doesn't feel so good because the body can only detoxify when there's enough water. Everything's moving out on water. So now her body is finally doing the detoxification she's always needed. I mean, having gallbladder issues and so forth at 49, that shouldn't be happening. It happens to a lot of people, but there's no reason for that. Every single human can feel and function incredibly well every single day if they're willing to do what they need to. But the first step is, I mean, again, so you can sip more water, 3 to 4 liters. You can focus on high water content foods. You might want to avoid saunas, sweating profusely. Then we have to replace all that. It's not easy to do. Harder than most people think. I don't know if you've heard of dry fasting. We're talking here about water only fasting. There are people who fast without water, and it's crazy. So far, I mean, in the last 10 years, dozens of people have died worldwide, including 6 people that I knew. And they all died from the same cause. I mentioned earlier, when we're dehydrated, we're taxing our kidneys. Each of these people died because their kidneys shut down. Kidneys shut down, game over. You can't filter your blood anymore, and that's it. You're dead. And one of them was around 28. The oldest was 72, a naturopathic doctor who lived a very healthy life, but he started dry fasting. I told him over and over again, don't do this. You're harming yourself. So what we need to do is we need to eat properly, sip enough water, avoid salt, things that are going to take water out of the body, diuretics, alcohol, coffee, tea, sodas, make you pee. So you're taking some water in, but you're actually peeing out more than you're taking in. They're called diuretics, and you lose water that way. You want to give up all those things if they're still in your program. I drink water only. I eat high water content foods only. And the crazy thing is, I mean, for some people are probably thinking, well, that sounds terrible. That doesn't sound very good. But actually, it's what your body wants when you get it clean and hydrated. It's all it wants, right? So far today, I've had half a watermelon, nothing else. I will be going to work out in an hour or so. And when I get back, I'll probably have some peaches or some nectarines, maybe a salad if I feel like making a salad. I'm lazy, so I may not want to make a salad. But the real key to getting hydrated is we have to get the old waste out. So the woman I mentioned to you, who was at 28, she's 30 now. She was 28 when she fasted with me, maybe 27. Had those 10 bowel movements down average for 7 months. Impossible to get hydrated until you get that stuff out of your body because it sits in there like a giant sponge. And again, how this affects fitness is, it's incredible. Every athlete, serious professional or serious amateur athlete I work with sees amazing improvements in their performance. I talked about a guy who was a ranked tennis player. His game got much better. Another tennis player in the Netherlands, game got much better after fasting. Now, again, there's going to be a time where you have to rebuild because you're going to lose some muscle mass, right? But what happens afterward is incredible. It's amazing what happens.
So for an athlete, What does that fasting protocol look like if somebody maybe in season, or and then what does it look like, off season?
Yeah, so in season, it's not really possible to do therapeutic fasting. In season, you have to stay strong. You can't afford to be detoxing heavily. You need to be working out regularly. And a lot of people say, "Well, I have to work out too in the off season." You're not probably old enough to remember. When I was a kid, tennis players, most are right hand. Most people are right-handed. Most of them would have a giant right arm and a skinny left arm. Okay, because what they did was they played tennis. That's all they ever did. There was no cross training. Okay, now people train all year long. Baseball players play baseball in the season, and then when they came back for spring training, they were fat. Some of them weren't in very good shape because they hadn't really been doing much all winter. That's what happens. Nowadays, of course, people train all year long, and it makes sense. But this is the single most important thing that people can do, not just for their overall health, which I would suggest is even more important. I mean, again, I love being fit, but I also want to be around a long time and feel good all the time, right? Have full use of my faculties, my vision, et cetera, et cetera. So even more important, fasting is the way we get there. And for anyone dealing with any specific issues, even more so, we talk about hypertension, type 2 diabetes. Our bodies are meant to heal. So I said this earlier, but I'm now over 39 years without a single day sick, which means I can train whenever I want to. I've never missed a day of work. I've actually worked now every day for more than 16 years. I guide people remotely for more than 16 years. Even when the center was still open, there were people that couldn't come to us because they were in Serbia and couldn't afford to fly around the world, or because they were in Alabama but were a single mom to 3 kids and needed to be home. And so they fasted with me remotely. And now that's all I do. We get great results, and it's a lot easier, frankly, than managing 25 employees. But so on season, I would say the best one can do would be to eat only when necessary. And I can never remember this guy's name. There's a famous Dallas Cowboy running back who went on he retired from football, I mean, many years ago, 30 years ago probably, and went on to become an MMA, won a championship at like 40 as an MMA fighter. And he says that ever since he was a teenager, maybe younger, he eats a bowl of soup and a sandwich every day, or a salad, and that's it. Nothing else. You're looking at this big, strong guy thinking, how's that possible? And the thing is, again, the more efficient the body is, the more, I'm not sure why his body would be that efficient. I know why mine is and why my clients are. But, for me, it's as the result of getting the body clean. I mean, think about this. The more efficient the body is, the more efficient your car is, the less fuel you need to put into it to do the same amount of work. The same is true with our bodies. The more efficient it is, the fewer calories we need, the better it uses everything it has coming in. The more hydrated we are, the easier we are to, we can build muscle because our muscles are larger, again, just by hydrating the body. They're more powerful. The impacts are amazing. But during the season, yeah, sip enough water, keep your diet as clean as possible, and maybe do intermittent fasting. How much food each person needs before they're getting into the game, if they're playing, that may vary, and that may be different from person to person depending on what they're doing. But in the off season, I would pick maybe at the end of the season when they probably have some time off. That's when I would say, great, take a month. Most of my clients almost everybody does at least 21 days with me. Right now, I've got 2 group calls. Everyone's fasting 21 to 42 days right now. And some people do longer than that. But right now, everyone's doing 21 to 42. It takes the body 10 to 11 days to get fully into the deepest part of the process in terms of detoxification. And again, this may sound crazy if you've never thought about it, but we live in an increasingly toxic world, and toxins are everywhere. They found, what glyphosate is, Roundup. They found glyphosate in polar ice and ice at the poles. How did it get there? Right? The stuff is everywhere. We've done a good job as humans of polluting the whole planet. And the stuff winds up in our bodies, and it has a huge impact on us. Anyone that's ever been vaccinated, you've got poison in your body that was injected in there. If you've taken any pharmaceuticals, and I understand people take them because they're told they need to, but pharmaceuticals are toxic substances that suppress symptoms. They don't make you healthier. You need to get that stuff out of your body. The average person my age takes 5 or 6 different medications every day. In the last 34 years, I've taken 2 ibuprofen, and I won't take anything else if I can avoid it. And that's even with broken bones, no painkillers. I'd rather just breathe and deal through it because the painkillers are poison. I don't want that stuff in my body, and they dehydrate you, right? So off season, take 4 weeks if you can make it happen. You're going to want to have guidance through the process. I'm happy to help, and be ready to see amazing things happen.
So
That's the way you really, yeah.
is there a way to know how hydrated you are? Like, is there an easy test you could do to tell your hydration levels or not?
Well, so again, the bioimpedance scale, the same scale that gives you your body fat and muscle mass, is going to tell you how much water's in your body. That number doesn't really tell you hydration because it's going to be skewed by the amount of body fat you have because body fat's so low in water. So I actually wrote formulas to take the data from the devices and to calculate lean and overall hydration numbers. So I do that with my clients, but there's no easy way to do that. You can measure water in the body, but it doesn't tell you hydration. That's a little different. There are some things that give us a sense of hydration. So, for instance, if you know what your blood pressure is, that's one way we can. It's not a measure of hydration, but because, and this sounds crazy, right? Your body is retiring between 40 and 45 million blood cells every second, every second. And that sounds like a lot, right? That's crazy. It's estimated we have roughly 70 trillion cells, and about 70% of those are blood cells. That means we've got almost 50 trillion blood cells. So 40 million is less than 1/1000th of 1% of all the blood is being replaced every second. Because the blood cells, like all human cells, all cells of any species, get damaged, they get worn out, they have to be replaced with new ones. We're replacing our cells all the time. But blood is 92% water. So if there's not enough water, your body can't replace all the blood cells you need. So I figured out 25 years ago how to take the vital signs, blood pressure, pulse, temperature, and interpret those to show how much, let's see, how do we talk about this? Again, it's not a measure of hydration, but it does tell us if one's hydrated or not. It definitely tells us if one's dehydrated. Okay, if the number is good, it doesn't necessarily mean you're hydrated, but if it's not good, it definitely means you're dehydrated. Because if you're hydrated, blood's important that you're enough that your body would make all the blood it needed to. So it can't really do that.
So who would you recommend do one of these long fasts that you talk about?
Well, it's a great question because this isn't for everyone. First of all, if you're listening today and you're already dead, this isn't going to help you. Okay? If you're not dead yet, this will definitely help you. Again, if you've been on the planet for 20, 30, 40 years or more, your body needs to detoxify and is probably dehydrated. And fasting is the single most beneficial thing that most of my clients have ever done. So anybody that wants to take their health to a much higher level, it's incredible. Now, obviously, again, this is about fitness. And if you want to be as fit as possible, the same thing applies. You have to get your body hydrated. You can't get your body hydrated until we get the garbage out of the body. It's impossible because that old stuff sits in the small intestine like a giant sponge. We eat and drink, and it's absorbing water. It's only when we get rid of it that we can take our hydration to amazing new levels. It's going to help everyone. If you're coachable and willing to do what you need to.
So how would you recommend they go about doing it? Like, if they've never done one before ever, what would you tell them to do for their first time?
So So the people I work with are typically doing 26 days on average, their first time, but they're doing it with guidance. And I said this before, it might have slipped by. Really, no, I mean, I've got clients right now. It's interesting. On my 2 calls right now, everybody's fasting with me for the second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth time. And most people find that they get huge benefit from the first one. The first one's life changing, but a lot of people want to fast again. And so, but the crazy thing is, they've already gone through this with me, and yet they keep coming back. Okay, so the key really is to have experienced guidance. It's not something you want to do on your own. Again, it's very powerful. To make sure that power is applied properly, you need to know what you're doing. So, I mean, you can experiment with fasting for a couple days, right? You haven't done that. You can try that. That won't really tell you what it's going to be like, though, if you do it well. It's very different. So, for anybody willing to, if you can take the time off, and you do need to be able to take. I mean, if you're self-employed, a lot of my clients are. If you're self-employed and you can arrange your schedule, if you need to make some calls or spend a little bit of time online, you can do that. The goal is to rest as completely as possible. So it's fantastic if you can actually take 4 weeks and do nothing. Beautiful. Not everyone can do that, obviously. You also have to be able to make the investment. But if you're able to do that, it's the single most beneficial thing that most people are ever going to do.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do when what would you recommend people do as far as eating goes when they're not doing these fasts? I know you mentioned a little bit, what's it called? Intermittent fasting. So like,
Yeah.
What do you recommend when you're not doing one of these fasts?
Well, what I typically do is I typically eat 1 or 2 meals a day. When it's one, it could be mid-afternoon or it could be early evening. If it's 2, it's going to be mid-afternoon and early evening, like 2 and 6, for instance. Again, now, not everyone may be ready to do that yet, but as the body becomes more efficient, it becomes easier. And the key is, again, hydration means we want to stick to high water content food. So as I said earlier, for 34 and a half years, I eat only fruit and simple green salads. Little, if anything else, because everything else we're eating is actually harmful to the body in some way. And I know that sounds crazy, but the truth is that when we eat cooked food, which this is a huge leap for most people, but cooking actually creates toxic compounds that your body reacts to as if it's been poisoned. There's a process called digestive leukocytosis. Leukocytes are white blood cells. We make them in the bone marrow. We send them to the site of every injury. So if you've ever broken a bone, or even you fall off your bike and skin your knee, your body creates leukocytes and sends them to the site of injury. We send leukocytes to the digestive tract every time we cook food. There is no leukocytosis when we're eating fruit and simple salads. So that's what I'd recommend doing. I realize that seems extreme to many people, but it's incredible what happens when you do it.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do for your protein? How do you get protein in?
Well, this is the piece that a lot of people have trouble understanding, but protein is the building block of living cell tissue. We know it's the building block of muscle mass, right? It's the building block of all living cells. So watermelon, the structure of watermelon is protein. Oranges, apples, protein. Tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers, all protein. They all have tiny amounts of protein. If protein is the building block of living cells, when will we need the most protein? What would you guess?
When you're a child?
Even more specifically, when you're an infant, right? Average human baby is about 7 pounds at birth, about 20 pounds at age 1. We roughly triple in size in our first year of life. Have you tripled in size since then?
I wish.
No, you probably wouldn't really enjoy that very much.
No.
In the second year of life, we grow 30%. 1/10 as fast as we did the first year. We never grow that fast again. Okay, in that first year of life, what are we consuming ideally?
Breast milk.
Only breast milk, average about 2.5% protein. No one needs to be getting 20, 30% of their calories from protein. On average, I probably get 5, because most fruits have between 3 and 7% protein, and leafy greens are actually 50% protein. I don't eat a lot of them, but they're about 50% protein by calorie, not a lot of calories, right? That's all we need. There's almost no Kwashiorkor is the name for protein deficiency. It's a deficiency disease when people don't get enough protein. The only people on the planet who have that are people who are so poor they can't eat enough calories. If you're eating enough food, you're getting all the protein you need. We all think protein's a big, I mean, and again, let me be clear, and this may be important for you and for the people listening here. If you want unnaturally large muscles, okay, I have a small frame. I'm never going to carry, a huge amount of muscle mass. But at 65, I'm fit and strong, and I'm not worried about being as big as possible. If you want to be much bigger than is natural for your body, you're going to have to eat more protein. It is important, but it means you won't live as long. Okay, it's hard on your body, and the science is really clear about this. So we can easily get the protein we need eating fruit and leafy greens. We never needed very much. The USDA, more than 100 years, about 100 years ago, set out to determine the RDAs for protein. They looked at how much protein a rat needs, and then they doubled it to be conservative. Pretty sure you're not a rat. Okay. After they came up with that number, which was twice what a rat needs to be healthy, the lobbyists from the meat and dairy industries came calling and said, hey, do us a favor. And they doubled it again. So the RDA for protein has always been set at roughly 4 times what a rat needs to be healthy. They grow much faster than we do. They need more protein than we do. Okay. Now the key, I'm very familiar with sarcopenia. You're too young to worry about this. Older people, sarcopenia means muscle loss, right? And this happens as people get older. And what they're told, older people my age are told, no, you have to eat twice as much protein now. No, you don't. You have to get your body efficient. When the body's efficient, we don't need much protein, but the average person's body is not functioning very well and is very dehydrated. So once we get it hydrated and functioning properly, protein needs are tiny.
Mm-hmm. So when you say get your body efficient, is that pretty much mean you're just lowering your metabolism? Is that what's happening?
Well, very few people get that, but that is part of it, right? And everyone's talking about how to raise your metabolism because they want to lose weight or be able to eat more without gaining weight. But that means, if you could double your car's metabolism, you'd go from 30 miles to gallon to 15. Not good, right? Mm-hmm. You need twice as much fuel to do the same amount of work. So that is part of it. Yes, absolutely. But the way we do that is we get the body clean, and the whole body literally efficient means it works better than it did before. So part of that is metabolism comes down. And this is, again, why I maintain 170 or so, 170, 175 pounds on 1,000, 1,200 calories a day. Mm-hmm. Sounds impossible to most people, but it happens.
No, I definitely, I get it. I understand. So what would you say to the people out there that are that believe the complete opposite? Like they believe you need to eat more food.
Yeah.
And I guess you said you're not trying to get bigger and stronger, which I guess that's a lot of people's argument is you need the more protein to grow bigger and stronger.
Well, first of all, the science is really clear that animal proteins are in no way superior. People grow just as much muscle eating plants. We do, again, if you want to build unnaturally large, you're going to need more protein. But some studies have shown that people are fine consuming as little as 30 grams of protein per kilo, which is 2.2 pounds, far less than most Americans are consuming, far less. And they still have no trouble building and maintaining muscle mass. Again, I'm eating considerably less than that, and it's no problem. Now, I am strong. I'm not concerned about size. I'm 65 years old. I'm done with that. I played that game a long time ago, but I'm not concerned about that anymore. And at the time I was doing it, I was eating way too much protein, and it actually made me very sick. It's one of the reasons I got so sick in my early 20s. I wouldn't recommend that. The science is clear about this. The only studies that suggest that eating a high protein diet are good for you are studies that are literally paid for by the meat and dairy industries. All the real science is very clear about this.
Mm-hmm. So what are some misconceptions that people have around fasting?
Well, Misconceptions are that, first of all, many people equate fasting with starving. The science actually talks about it this way. The 2016 Nobel Prize for Medicine went to a Japanese PhD who demonstrated that autophagy happens most efficiently and effectively, as they said in the paper, in starvation. He won the Nobel Prize for this. They're not starving, they're fasting. They're two different things. When we're fasting, we're running on the fat reserves primarily, a little bit of muscle. When we're starving, there's no fat reserves and we're destroying vital tissue. So fasting always leads to health, starving always leads to death, but a lot of people, the biggest misconception is they're the same thing. Okay. Another huge misconception is that fasting is easy, just stop eating. What kind of guidance do you need? You have to understand what's going on. You have to understand how to know how much water you need. Everyone's dehydrated, every single person we've measured. And these are usually people who are health conscious. People who aren't health conscious are much worse off. I just don't see them. They don't usually come to me. They're super dehydrated. And hydration is critically important. And so without really understanding the numbers, it's very difficult for people to do this well on their own. I have a client who fasted on his own. He had fasted with me, had amazing results. He was a tennis player from the Netherlands, had amazing results. And then he came back a year later and said, I want to do this again. And I said, okay, great. He said, but this time I just want to drink when I feel like it. And I said, no, if you're not going to take coaching, I can't help you. You have to be willing to take coaching. So he fasted on his own, not with my guidance. Went up in the hospital with 2% kidney function. And I've got a video, I can show you a video where he talks about this. Came back to me a year later. He was in the hospital for 4 months, nearly died at the age of like 25. Came back to me a year later and told me what happened and said, I wanted to fast again. With your guidance, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And so I took him through another 21-day fast. And this time, a few months later, he went back and got checked, and they said he was back to 100% function. So that's, in fact, a misconception. Some people think that if you have kidney, adrenal, liver issues, you can't fast. You can. There's nothing better for you. But again, it has to be done correctly. Another big misconception, and you asked about this earlier, some people think you have to take electrolytes when fasting. The truth is, if you take anything but water, if you put salt in your water, if you take anything else, your body thinks there's food coming, and it takes you out of fasting physiology. It puts you back into normal feeding physiology, so you don't get the same benefits. Okay, so it has to be water only, like every other species on the planet. You just have to do it correctly.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the guy was in the hospital for 4 months.
Yeah.
So what would cause that when you're fasting? Is that because he was in like a starvation mode? He didn't do it correctly?
No, it's because he was becoming more and more dehydrated. He just wasn't getting enough water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are people who have fasted too long. It takes a long time to starve for most people. You've probably seen pictures and footage of people leaving German concentration camps with 2.5% body fat. You need between 2 and 2.5% body fat to survive. Most people don't have anything to worry about. They're not going to starve to death. But if they don't do it correctly, they can damage their organs. They can create issues. And they're not going to get the benefits that they're looking for without doing it correctly. So those are really the biggest challenges.
Mm-hmm. So would you recommend somebody start off with like a smaller fat, like a 3-day or a 7-day fast first?
If someone wants to create the highest level of health and vitality possible, again, what my clients do is they come to me. Their first fast is 21, 26, 30, 42, 47. One client's first fast was 4.5 months. He had stage 4 testicular cancer. When he was done, there was no trace of cancer. Mm-hmm. If you're coachable, you don't need to start with a short. You don't have to train your body. Like every other species on the planet, our bodies know exactly what to do.
Yeah, what would you say to the person that's like, there's no way I can do that? Like I would get way too hungry. Or like,
Okay.
That's what I think. I think I would be starving. I don't know how I would do it.
Well, you'd be surprised because what happens is your body produces ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, just for the first 3 days or so. And the first 3 days, you might feel a bit of hunger. After that, it goes away. Your body is getting its needs met. It's just using fat and a little bit of muscle to get those needs met.
Yeah.
So it's surprising to people, but most people don't. Right now I've got people, let's see, I've got a guy who is on day 31 of a 42-day fast. This is his third fast with me. I've got a guy who just completed 21 days for the second time. The people fasting with me, none of them are hungry. And they're all, some of the one person's only 4 days in. Everybody else is further in than that. 15, 16, 18, 21 days in, perfectly fine. No sense of hunger. Yeah.
So how do you know when the right time is to break the fast? Like, how do you know when, like, all right, it's done its job. Now let's start introducing some food back in.
Well, the truth about this is, again, and I mean, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, or if I'm trying to self-promote, if it sounds like that, but this isn't something one should be doing without guidance. So if you've got experienced guidance, you don't have to worry about that. It becomes self-evident. And most people won't fast long enough to get to that point, because it would take most people close to 8 weeks to begin to starve. Not very many people are going to fast for 8 weeks on their own, first time out. Right? So, I mean, I've taken more than 1,000 people through fasts of 42 days or more. And again, the longest one was 4.5 months. As long as you know what you're doing, it's not really an issue. But you have to have guidance. That's the critically important piece.
So eventually you'll just get to the point to where you just decide you're going to start eating again. Like, there's nothing like.
Well, I mean, eventually you're going to feel real hunger. But by the time that happens, you're going to look terrible. You're going to be super emaciated, because your body's going to have used up all your fat, and you're going to be down to 2.5% body fat. You're going to look like a concentration camp victim before you get hungry. Most people. So what happens is people come to me and say, "I'm dealing with these issues," or I'm okay. I'm 35 and I'm okay, but I don't feel as good as I could. Or my vision's not great, or whatever it is. And I'll look at their health history. We'll talk about what's going on, and I'll recommend how long I think they should fast. And usually that's what they do. And then we break their fast because we've already decided they're breaking their fast. In fact, I only work with 6 people at a time on a call, and I usually have a waiting list. So people are telling me up front, we're agreeing up front what they're going to do. And they're just breaking their fast because, okay, it's day 22. You fasted 21 days. It's time to eat. That's what we do.
Okay, that's why I was curious. I was like, how do you know when to stop it?
Yeah, usually it's a decision we've made up front. I mean, for many people, it's, well, I've got to get back to work, or my wife is tired of me laying here all day and not doing anything. I've got to go back and contribute. So most people decide up front what they're going to do.
So you wouldn't recommend somebody doing one of these fasts if they couldn't, like, stop working, like if they still had to go to work every day?
No, definitely not.
Is that just because you'll just be using too much energy, or why is that?
Yeah. When you have to be resting, so in order for your body to cleanse and heal, you have to have the energy that you get from resting completely. You're going to wind up losing much more muscle if you're being active, and you're not going to get the benefits you came for. So it doesn't make sense. If you're listening here, I mean, we have a new program where it's heavy on education and 1 week of fast, 7 days. So if you can take a week off, we could do that. That's a way people could learn the process learn how to do it. But you still would need to be off for those 7 days. Yeah.
So do you recommend people of any age do this, or like is it mostly older people that you work with?
No. I work with people of all ages. My youngest client was 2.5. He was born with a heart defect. He was on medication every day until he was 2.5. He fasted with me, was able to come off the medication for 4 months. He eventually needed to go back on, but he did much better after fasting. I fast children sometimes. I had an 11-year-old who had an inguinal hernia. He had healed the hernia, but he had frostbite on his cheek. He was Canadian, and he had gotten frostbite when he was 3 or 4 years old. He was 11 at the time. He fasted 21 days with me. Frostbite disappeared on the 10th day. Same with the varicose vein sticking out here. I'm so sorry. Someone's at my door. Can you hang on just 1 second?
Yeah, you're good.
It's a weird, but I'll be right back. Hang on.
Well, we're just chilling, guys. All right, I guess we'll waste some time while we're waiting on him to get back. So if y'all hadn't yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening at. Go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching this on Facebook, go ahead and share it for me. I'd appreciate it. Add me on all my socials. So it's Murphy McFit on all my socials, or you can follow the podcast channel at the Fitness Beginner Podcast. I do post it on YouTube as well as all podcasting platforms.
All right, sorry about that.
You're good.
I just noticed what time it is. Unfortunately, I've got to get to an appointment in a couple minutes.
That's fine. We can end it here if you want to. I don't want to keep you too much
Yeah,
longer.
no, it's listen. I mean, I'd love to share all day long, but I've got a busy schedule.
Yeah, I got it. I got questions I could ask you too. If you would just let everybody know where they can find you, where they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, sure. Email best is support at fast, F-A-S-T-T-O, fast to rise, FASTTORISE.com. You can go to the website, fasttorise.com. It's a new website. The old one from the center we're still taking down, and so not everything's there yet, but you can go there and contact us through there as well. You can find me on social media, Loren Lockman .official on Instagram and Facebook. YouTube, it's _official. And again, we'll have a link for anyone interested in learning more. There's a free ebook for your listeners. They can just click on the link that you'll provide, and that'll take them to this free book. There's a lot of great information there. So, and you know, if you want to get back into it sometime, let me know. We can do it again.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll leave the link down in the description. So if y'all want to check it out, we'll leave that link down there for y'all. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's podcast. So y'all be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the Fitness Beginner Podcast. Y'all have a great day.